who should get the first opportunity to play on Sidney Crosby's left wing this season? Rector McGroarty, shocker here, 4 days into being in the organization, 56% of the fans vote that he should start the season alongside Sidney Crosby. Drew O'Connor, who finished last year with Crosby, gets 32% of the vote. Michael Bunting gets 10%, and then other gets 2% of the vote. So Horwat, before we get into the Rutger McGroarty of it all, who do you think should get that first opportunity alongside Crosby's wing?
I'm going with Rutger McGroarty as well. It was whenever the Penguins grabbed him, I think that was my first thought, is that he should filter in right next to Crosby, at least to start training camp, at least to start the preseason if that sort of lineup comes out, just to see if he is capable of that. If things aren't working, it's early in the season, you quickly move him to wherever he may be more comfortable and go from there. But something about one of the top prospects that the league has to offer right now, I mean, major step forward taken by the Penguins in getting someone like that, even if it did cost a Braden Yeager, who, was up there among the top prospects, but not as NHL ready, not as big, and doesn't have as well-rounded of a game. Rutger McGroarty can come in, likely play alongside Sidney Crosby right away. He's starting his NHL career alongside one of the best of all time. There's no better way to kick off a career. And we've seen it before. We've talked about it before. The Penguins like playing these younger, not inexperienced, but NHL inexperienced and less skilled. Not that McGroarty isn't as skilled, but these lesser skilled guys like Pascal Dupuis or Dominic Simone comes to mind right away. The younger, lesser skilled players to all of a sudden be for some reason, staple to them. At least if in this case, if it is Rutger McGroarty, there's some skill there. There's some hope. There is a looking to the future, and who knows what kind of future McGroarty has. It's a little premature to start looking far down the line of if he can be the one that Crosby and Malkin pass the torch to, but that's still a possibility. If he comes in and he's immediately a important piece to the team and makes a difference and is playing beside Malkin or Crosby right away, there's no reason why he couldn't be handed that torch in. He'd be a bit more veteran. He'd be a bit older, but 5-6 years time, maybe, depending on how long Crosby's got left. But starting him now, I'd say he's the piece that should be starting next to him, given training camp, preseason stuff.
Yeah, I think when training camp opens in a couple of weeks, I think McGroarty should be there. But here's where I differ. I got excited last week. Right after the McGroarty trade, I put out a lineup, at least on the live, I discussed the lineup, where I did have McGroarty starting the season alongside Crosby. But I do understand that a lot of people have mentioned this, and I actually agree. This is a kid that has never stepped foot in an NHL game before, has never played a shift, has never took warm-ups, has never done any of that. For that reason, and for the reason of your third line center, whether it's Eller or Kevin Hayes, is a stout veteran in this league. I think you should start the season with McGroarty. Unless he blows you away in training camp, I think you should start the season with McGroarty on that third line. Because not only is it, okay, you put him with Crosby, skill begets skill, it'll just be a match made in heaven. But you have to think about the fact that this kid is 20 years old. And because of that, I want to put him with somebody, not that Crosby isn't, but I want to put him with somebody who's going to be able to be that veteran presence. But also, I want to put him against people that are a little bit easier matchup-wise. Because Crosby always gets the toughest matchups. You might be throwing him into the meat grinder, not just because you're saying, hey, sink or swim, you're alongside Sidney Crosby. Everybody expects you to swim and swim like Michael Phelps when you're playing with the best in the world. But you're also going up against, some of the best on the other team night in and night out. So maybe it is good, especially to start the season, to give him a little bit of a lesser role, because he is not a guy that will shy away from that. I mean, the guy is 6'1", 205. He can play that third line grinder style. He has the body to play it. He has the attitude to play it. So why not let him earn his stripes a little bit? I think it could be a position where he starts in the third line. You let Drew O'Connor start on that first line again, continue to build what he had late last season with Crosby. And I think it could be a situation where you see a very, very quick promotion if he proves to be that guy on the third line and proves to have that skill. That way you can get O'Connor down there, O'Connor in a role that really fits him perfectly. And you can let McGroarty kind of build up to that quickly. And then all of a sudden have that momentum, have that confidence, and put him next to Crosby and let things just take off from there. So I've been kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out all weekend, especially right as soon as the trade happened. I was all in McGroarty next to Crosby. But now I'm thinking maybe you start him off on that third line and let him build up to that first line. It might be quick. It might be really quick. It might be 5-6 games into the season before you say, all right, this guy is undeniable. Let's move him up with Crosby and let O'Connor kind of balance things out. And a big part of that is going to be how O'Connor performs early in the season as well. But I think it might be good to start him off with a guy like Kevin Hayes and maybe a Valtteri Puustinen as your third line. I think I could see that working well for McGroarty and working well for the Penguins.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. I like the idea of starting the rookie off in a more not relegated, but in a more sheltered role to start right away, especially because you're right. He hasn't played in the NHL. Not only has he not played in the NHL, he's never played a game of professional hockey professionally. Yeah. Like he hasn't played in Europe. He hasn't played in the AHL. He hasn't even played in the E. Like he's coming from college, which is a good system. It is a good system to play. And he was a great player with Michigan, but he's coming into a whole new ball game with it being straight up professional hockey.
Yeah.
There's something new. It's his first stint there. It's his first jump. It's his first run. It's going to be a learning curve. And that's why I think whenever I gave my answer, I was sort of in the back of my head thinking the same thing that you were. Start him on the third line and move him up when the season starts. Whereas training camp and preseason, stick him next to Crosby and see if he's able to do those things with that sort of player. Mm-hmm. But once the season rolls around, make sure he's had some reps with Kevin Hayes or Zeller, whoever it may be. And then that's kind of where he goes when the games get important. Because like I said before, all 82 are going to be important. You're going to want your best lineup on the ice, your best combinations on the ice each and every night. Mm-hmm. And if what's best for the Penguins is him on the third line to start the year, by all means, it's where he should be. And you're right, it could be a quick promotion. He could be jumping right up to the first line in no time. It's just a matter of working his way there.
Yeah. Yeah, the one guy we haven't mentioned, and we'll close it out with this because I feel like we got to give him some shine. He was in this poll. Michael Bunting gets 10% of the vote. I think most people, when they saw this poll, said Michael Bunting with Crosby. That means he's not with Malkin. And that's who was great with Malkin last year. Is it a foregone conclusion that Michael Bunting is starting this season alongside Evgeny Malkin? And until they prove that they're not going to be as good as they were last season, that's just going to be who's staple gun to Malkin all year long.
And that's who should be. That's the best option for Malkin. That's the best option for Michael Bunting. Just it's the way it ended. We saw how good of a run Bunting had with Malkin, how good Malkin was with Bunting. That's just the perfect duo to start the year.